Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I'm with Laurel Cavalluzzo. Laurel is the Director of Marketing for Empirical Consulting Solutions. So sometimes it's got to be a little difficult when you approach an organization and say, we can do all these things. But you've got to pinpoint or target or kind of, walk into an organization at some point, and then you're able to see all these other issues that you're talking about.
Absolutely. You got to start somewhere, like you said. The managing partners are fantastic at working with an organization and figuring out where to start first. Because when you're working with a company, there's maybe 100 things, 100 issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
But you can only start in one place, maybe one functional area. And sometimes it is sales and marketing. Marketing is, of course, my sweet spot.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's operational issues or culture or leadership. So again, the managing directors have a fantastic knack for looking and being able to prioritize who from the team to pull in. And that's really important, and I think one of the unique differentiators.
So it's difficult for you to get the word out. If ECS has all these, various methods of helping companies, helping organizations, and skill sets really, to go out and help a company with HR recruiting and sales and marketing, I'm assuming financial engineering, all kinds of, maybe even mergers and acquisitions, post-merger acquisition, culture. Is it difficult for you as a marketing person or a sales and marketing person to get the word out about an organization like ECS?
Actually, I think it's a little bit easier because ECS is so unique and different that when I'm out talking about the organization with others, they say, wait, stop. I haven't heard about this type of firm before. I haven't heard about this type of resource before. And because, again, all of us have worked in major corporations. When I was a marketing person in my previous corporate life, I touched all functional areas. So I'm very comfortable talking about operations, HR, finance, et cetera. You become cross-functional just by necessity when you're working for a major corporation. Yeah. But again, the message, we're unique, we're different, so it gives a great line of messaging when I'm talking with people, and they say, tell me more.
Yeah, so how do you actually get into an organization like that? Or, what is the, what's the ailment that an organization might have where ECS kind of walks in and says, oh, I've got this opportunity here?
Well, it's a great question, and what happens many times is a business might be successful, but it takes a little while for them to realize they could be more successful. We all get entrenched with our day-to-day activity, and we're humming along, we're making some money, but a lot of times businesses don't stop and say, hey, well, we could make some changes and increase our profitability or expand our market reach or do whatever the opportunities are to do. So what I found is by really engaging in conversations with business owners, when it comes back to networking and connections and just having a lot of different conversations, probing questions, asking about what a business is doing, or throwing out an idea, hey, have you thought about this? Then that gets the wheels spinning and gets a business leader thinking, okay, well, let's continue this conversation.
Right.
So it's not, immediate, oh, ECS, help us. It's, let's talk more about this and see what the opportunities are, and then from there, hopefully, the relationship develops.
Yeah. What's the typical sweet spot for an engagement with ECS? How big does the company need to be in order for you to, play a role there?
Great question. Yeah. We have actually been working with some larger companies and also more recently some smaller companies as well. Again, if there's a good fit and we have the resources who can do and work with the business in a cost-effective and efficient way, it's a win-win for everybody. And again, I don't think we like to say, oh, you're too small of a business. That doesn't make sense in our case because we want to build relationships and situations change. Businesses grow, they develop, and it's all about relationships and connections. So we're always anxious to develop those.
Such an interesting, ECS has really such an interesting platform because, any management consulting firm out there, whether it's sales, marketing, whatever it is, they're very narrowly focused and you kind of go in and it's, you're fixing, a lot of times you're looking at a symptom and there's a much wider problem there. It could be a cultural issue. It could be the fact that they don't really have an understanding of what their brand is. I mean, it could be so vast. I mean, you look at a business continuum from the beginning to the end, and there's so many things you could do. How do you find clients? Where do you uncover a new client prospect? or a new prospect?
Great question, and I think that's something that every business owner wants to explore, and I'm constantly talking to different people, finding out, okay, what's the best way to connect? I would say both online and offline. So, and the two have to intersect and have to work together.
Yeah.
And you're very active on social media, and you're very active in networking groups, so I think you can probably identify this yourself. But it's, I moved to the area about 4 years ago. When I came to this area, I came from the Midwest. I had lived in DC previously. I knew nobody. So I started out by going to different networking events, and when I met people, I would say, who do you know, where do you meet connections, and just asking a lot of different people those questions. Then, on the flip side, looking online at different online discussion groups, LinkedIn, for example, figuring out once you meet somebody on LinkedIn, once you meet somebody, you connect with them on LinkedIn, and then from there you have additional doors that can open up,
Sure.
discussion groups you can join, and so forth. So, you know, I share that with you and with the audience to let you know how you can start with, you know, basically from not having a lot of connections into growing that base. But then over time, now it's so much easier once you have that initial base of people who you know, and it's, you know, again, having conversations both online and offline and staying in touch with people. That's another really important thing too, is out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely.
If you're out there,
I say that all the time. I do.
So true.
So
So
once
true.
you connect with someone on LinkedIn, you're saying that you need to follow up, you need to have lunch with them, or a coffee, whatever,
Absolutely,
something.
yeah. And so, you know, if it's a colleague, somebody like you, it's great to touch base with you every few months, you know, whether by email or phone or coming on the show, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If it's a prospect, that's where the CRM, the customer relationship management systems,
of
come into
course.
place. And that's actually a very interesting discussion, because many businesses that we've found don't use that tool. It's a technology, it's a system, and it's a way to put a process around building those relationships and making sure you stay in touch. I mean, it's very easy to not do anything, but it's actually very easy to find a CRM solution to then remind you to stay in touch. Because, you know, we're forgetful, we're busy putting out our fires each day.
Absolutely.
We got to step back and look at that bigger picture and remember how to
One
keep
of the
that
hardest
going.
things to do, frankly. I
It
mean,
is.
follow up and talk to people on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break, okay? When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the people behind ECS, the team that you talked about earlier, right after this message from our sponsors.
Obligation Medicare benefits consultation, 856-226-4800.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to create a better visitor experience.
Improve our workflow.
Attract new customers. That's when Fast Signs recommended Fleet Graphics.
Yeah, now business is rolling in. Get started at fastsigns.com.
What do I want to be when I grow up? Maybe a musician? A veterinarian? Maybe an equestrian? A mommy? Well, why not be all these things and more? Consider joining me, Dr. V, with friends and colleagues as we explore a wide range of topics together. V is for variety, here on RVN TV.
There you go, Richard. Oh! Is that too hard for you?
No. Is it too hard for you?
Woo! We're playing catch now. Oh, shit.
Why should you choose Rowan College at Gloucester County? Low cost, the #1 nursing program in all of New Jersey. More than 70 programs of study, including selective admissions. With record enrollment. A premier partnership with Rowan University. Transfer options with numerous universities. 4-year degree options on our campus. Rowan College at Gloucester County. Now you're thinking.
back to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I'm with Laurel Cavalluzzo. Laurel is the Director of Marketing for Empirical Consulting Solutions, and we're just talking about the uniqueness that ECS brings to consulting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the people behind ECS. You mentioned your background. You know, you worked for ExxonMobil for 10 years, great background. Your educational background is a great background. You went to the University of Penn. Some great people there, right?
They're fantastic. So there are several managing partners who come from large corporations like Aramark, but what they bring is, and global corporations, but what they bring is incredible experience across all functional areas. So a good example is to share some of the workshops that we've done and the different topics that we've covered. So two of our partners recently just did a workshop on finance for the non-financial manager. So we have a couple finance whizzes, but they can bring it to a language that everybody can understand. So I, as a marketer, I need to be able to talk about financial numbers and be able to explain it to clients and so forth. Do I have a strong finance background? No, but I need to have a working knowledge of it. So this is the type of thing our team can do. Culture within an organization, operations. Bill Morrow is one of the managing partners there. He and I did a sales and marketing workshop earlier this year. How those two teams must collaborate. They must work together, and in so many organizations they clash. There's no need for that. So we did a couple-hour workshop on ways to bring those teams together to bring better results for a corporation.
Right. Companies so often, I mean, I saw this, I've run my business for 31 years. And for the longest time, Laurel, you see companies that have they're siloed in finance, in IT, in sales, and marketing, and they should all be collaborating, and they're not. So
it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. And I will just take that a little bit further. Even within marketing, because again, that's my sweet spot, but you'll see silos like with social media, PR, database marketing, and they don't all work together and mesh together. So it's done at a broader perspective, and then within each functional area as well, there's not that collaboration, and it drives all of us.
And ECS brings an efficiency and an effectiveness to corporations to get them to work more in collaboration with one another. So that's a great segue into the next question, which is you've got to see some headwinds or resistance in some areas when you're, let's start with prospecting, for example. What do those headwinds look like, or what does the resistance look like when you're going out prospecting for a company?
A lot of times corporations are on that verge where they know they could be doing more, but they're not quite sure what's going to tip the scale and say, all right, we're ready to bring in some outside folks to come in. And I think a lot of it is it's businesses, and I mentioned this before, they're pretty successful, they're making money, they're able to meet payroll, they're maybe eking out a little bit of a profit, and in some cases it's like, oh, that's good enough.
Yeah, they're comfortable.
They're comfortable, and it's not painful to the point where they're losing money, in which case they're like, okay, we've got to do something, but there is a lot of money being left on the table. So being able to talk with companies and leadership and explain there is this additional opportunity, and it also doesn't cost a lot necessarily to go in and start to make some differences. Again, it's not all long-term solutions. Some of them are short-term, some of them are medium-term, and some of them are longer-term to bring financial results. So it is a challenge. But again, having that conversation and explaining, kind of like we're talking about now, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, when you're finally into a client, what are some of the resistance issues or headwinds that you find when you're actually engaged with the client?
Right. Well, a number of things happen. Again, it's employees, and what we wind up oftentimes doing is speaking with all the different employees within a company to get their take on things. So
everyone?
Depends on the situation, but in a recent example, I was working with Bill Morrow. We spoke with every single employee in the organization. There were about 20 of them. But again, to get their take, to get their understanding of what was going on from a sales and marketing perspective. In this particular client example, it made sense to talk to everyone. Don't always do that, but again, we need to do things efficiently, but we need to get that information that we need, otherwise we can't make the right recommendations. So it's a balancing act there. So, when we're talking with different employees, again, a lot of them have been doing things a certain way for a long time. Change is hard.
It is.
Inertia.
It so is, yeah.
You know, and so that's where we need to have leadership, the leadership of an organization, really set the stage and embrace looking at, you know, allowing ECS to come in and look at things from a fresh eyes perspective. You know, again, we're coming in, we know so many different industries. You know, and from a marketing standpoint, I can't imagine what industry I have not touched so far. But again, the standards of marketing apply across all industries. You know, it's knowing who your target audience is, knowing what your overall business goals and working towards them. But anyway, getting back to the point, having leadership understand that we're here to help, and we want to set everyone up for success.
Yeah.
And once people understand that, then the road is clear.
So there are a couple of organizations like Gazelles or, you know, or Traction, EOS implementation, that it seems like there would be some competition for ECS, but I'm not really sure if like Vern Harnish's Gazelles is a competitor to you or EOS is. I know we talked about the differentiation between ECS and some of these other consulting firms. Do you ever run into them?
Not very much
really?
at all.
Okay.
No, not very much at all. I think, again, ECS...
ECS is much more personal. It seems like you guys are a much more... You get into the personality of the organization, and when you just said you talk to everyone in the company, that is so different than a lot of other consulting firms, Laurel. They are not getting into the kinds of conversations you're getting into. You and Bill got into, for example, with this client you talked about. What kinds of questions are you asking people?
Well, we want to, first of all, find out what they're doing on a daily basis. You know, when you're talking with somebody within an organization, knowing what their routine is, what their tasks are, you know, with this recent client that we were working with, just finding out who is doing the marketing and the sales, because it wasn't a defined process. So where, you know, there's no salesperson, there's sort of a marketing person, but not really. We need to find out, well, who's doing what and what processes are being used, if any. You know, in this particular case, we found out there was no defined process. So with each individual person, what we were able to do is find out what they were doing. How are they keeping track of who their leads were? How are they following up? Was there a centralized database, you know, some sort of a CRM where it was being tracked? The answer was no. So in conversations, it's almost like an onion. You know, you peel back different layers, and it's like, all right, well, based on this information, we've got to go a little bit deeper and find out a little bit more. And then soon we have this wealth of information that we then need to turn into, here's a recommendation of, you know, 2 to 3 things that we can do right now to really set the stage and get the processes in place that will make you much more efficient. And then over the longer term, this is what we'd like to look to do.
Boy, there's so, I mean, I'm thinking about this now. There's so many companies. I mean, we're all guilty of this to some level or some degree. You go into an organization, and if you're an employee, right, the whole notion is, let me get into work, do my thing, and get out, right? And whether I'm really productive or I'm on Facebook or I'm doing something that's not really productive, big deal. You know, I get there at 8:30 and I leave at 5 o'clock, and I can't wait till lunch gets here, and, you know, I can do my thing or not do my thing. It's not very productive. It's certainly not very efficient. When you're talking to people about what they're doing, you're trying to get that honest feedback from them, right? And you're probably uncovering a whole lot of stuff that, you know, the leadership in that organization probably has no idea is going on.
Absolutely, it's so true. The other, and again, what we do is we never do anything in a threatening way. You know, again, we're here to help.
Right.
So one of the most important things is to establish that relationship with all the employees we talk to, so that, again, it's you know, we're all in the same team. We're all in this to make it improve for the better.
For the better.
And then the other, on the flip side, the other type of research that we can do is with customers and clients. Because that's, you know, in this particular case of the example, that was not where we were going down that path. But with another client that I'm working on with from a marketing perspective, talking with some of the clients of the organization has unveiled a wealth of information about what their perception is of the firm, what's going well and what isn't going well. The management was not aware of all the different findings there.
Really?
I do it in an anonymous way. So again, that, you know, I'm talking with a client, nobody will ever know what your name is, but your information that you're sharing, that will be given out as appropriate.
So keep talking about that. I want to hear a case study that ECS is engaged with a client, and you walked in and said, okay, talk specifics, but here's the problem, we've identified it, we've gone through this process, and at the end of a 12 or 18-month engagement, this is the result.
Yeah. So I'll actually give an example of a waste management company. From the marketing perspective, I'll focus more on that.
Not waste management, the big waste management, but a waste management company.
No, right, not the, but in that,
Yeah,
in the
in that-
waste
in
and
that business.
recycling
Yep, absolutely.
industry. Yes, exactly. So a company that's done very well, started by a gentleman 25 years ago, over time has expanded its offering. So really started again in waste and recycling, but over time has added on different additional revenue streams that made sense. Some were really complementary, some were a little bit out there, but again, there was many opportunities to make money. When I first met with the gentleman who owned the company, he basically said, we're doing great, but I have all of these brands. I can't keep track of it. My employees, he recognized the issues. My employees, when they're selling this division, they actually have no idea what's going on in these other divisions. And so there's not the cross-selling opportunities or really the solution finding for a client where there was a keen opportunity.
Yeah.
So he was insightful enough to see there were some obvious opportunities to, I think, bring his branding and his marketing together, but then train his staff and make sure that basically the whole world, his clients, his employees, and the rest of the world had an understanding for what this organization really did and the value that it provided.
Wow.
So for me, from a marketing perspective, it was, okay, we've got to have one primary brand. We can have some umbrella brands.
Yep.
We don't need 5 websites. We need one website. We can have different divisions that
With
have their
sub-brands underneath it, yeah.
Exactly. So again, very classical marketing, and knowing, who, first of all, starting with the overall business goals and objectives. What did this business owner, where did he see going in 5 years? Because in order to do marketing, if you don't know where the longer term goal is, you can't drive the car to get there.
Yep.
So understanding that and talking with employees, finding out what they had to share. In this case, talking with clients as well to find out what they knew or didn't know about the business, and then starting to develop, what that branding platform, the messaging platform, and then the supporting pieces of marketing collateral.
That's so interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs have that same problem. They see the opportunity to grow a business. They build a business based on some experience that they had prior, and then they see these other opportunities, and instead of just focusing and staying in their lane, they kind of build things, and they keep building things. And it's a common problem that they have, and it was so interesting that this leader was able to see this.
And it gets back to one of your earlier questions. How did that come about? Because again, I think probably other people had approached him. It was the conversation and me sharing insight and information, and he said, let me hear more. And in additional conversation, he's like, let's get to work, let's develop a strategy for my company.
Wow, perfect. We're going to come back after a quick break again. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about what ECS does and how you can help other companies out there
sounds good.
grow their business, right? We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
Choosing Medicare coverage can be a very confusing and complicated process. Help is just a phone call away, 856-226-4800. As a licensed insurance agent, I'll assist you in making an informed and confident decision on a Medicare plan that meets your needs, lifestyle, and budget. Call me today for a free, no obligation Medicare benefits consultation, 856-226-4800.
When did you see this?
Well, welcome back to Rainmakers Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio. I'm with Laurel Cavalluzzo, and Laurel is the Director of Marketing for ECS. So Empirical Consulting Solutions, and great conversation. Thank you so much for this.
It's been so much fun, Mark.
I'm glad you got here safely.
I'm too.
Where do you gain your, from where do you get your inspiration?
A lot of different sources, but like many people, it comes back to family.
Yeah.
And I was sharing this story with somebody just the other day about my parents. I'm a Gen Xer, so I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s, and my parents were PR professionals up in the north, actually on Long Island. And I was a little kid helping out my mom and dad where I could.
Wow.
And these were the days before computers. It was typewriters and mail, actually postal mail. So imagine sending out a press release in an envelope and having
Right.
to address things. I mean, talk about not very timely ways of getting things out there.
Yeah.
But working with my parents, what I really had an appreciation of was good communication.
Yeah.
And they inspired me. They're fantastic. To this day, they're authors, they're writers, they're PR professionals, fantastic communicators, which really does inspire me.
That's great. That's terrific.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've worked with colleagues and professors that have inspired you as well, but it's great. It's always great to have family inspire you.
It is.
How do we get in touch with ECS?
So we have a great website. It is thinkempirical.com. And on the website, you'll find links to social media channels and actually a blog section as well that has blogs by all the different experts on the team with different functional areas and a lot of fun conversation that goes on with those. So I'd encourage you to check that out as well.
Thank you so much, Laurel.
Thank
This has been a
you.
great half hour. I really appreciate you being here.
It's been fun. Thank you
Yes,
very
it has.
much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week on Rainmakers Roundup. Have a wonderful and safe week, and we'll see you again next Wednesday morning at 10:30.
When I needed to create a better visitor experience.
Improve our workflow.
Attract new customers. That's when Fast Signs recommended fleet graphics.
Yeah, now business is rolling in. Get started at fastsigns.com.
What do I want to be when I grow up? Maybe a musician? A veterinarian? Maybe an equestrian? A mommy? Well, why not be all these things and more? Consider joining me, Dr. V, with friends and colleagues as we explore a wide range of topics together. V is for variety, here on RVN TV.
There you go, Richard. Oh! Is that too hard for you?
No. Is it too hard for you?
Woo! We're playing catch now. Oh, shit.